Oh, hello there. You just caught me researching on how to make my own will, because my wife's gonna kill me after she found out how much I spent on this episode.
I thought I had plenty of machines to cover my series for years to come, but thanks to this absolute massive genius, I had to buy even more gear so I could test out the 8-bit port of Sonic the Hedgehog for the Commodore 64.
Yeah, thanks mate. Right after Christmas too, when I spent all my money. Yeah, I realise we're in the middle of April,
so I went onto eBay to do some excellent shopping. Firstly, the Commodore 64 is how much?
No.
Not only did I need to keep up with the Commodores to come up with a solid answer, but an REU of at least 256 kilobytes is a must for the game to even boot. And as for NTSC, an accelerator is recommended. The Super CPU was too expensive, yet I was able to get an alternative, although it can't piggyback the 1764.
But I digress. The task tonight is to find out how well this game really runs on real hardware, because the answer is not all cut and dry.
Before even cheating with the SD loader, I got myself a Zoom floppy that can write to the 5 1/4 floppy disks. Luckily, a 1541-2 disk drive came with one of my computers. Getting some help from a few friends because I'm just not that smart, we successfully and was pretty easily able to write both sides of the game to 2 different discs. And then because of this site, I was able to print off some sleeves and labels. And voila, we're now ready to play more genuinely. We'll be starting with the PAL Commodore 64C, because not only did this give me the best looking picture out of the bunch, but because, well, you'll find out in due course. In BASIC, type this command. It will then read the disk, and then when ready, type run, press enter, and as long as you have the REU inserted because it won't boot otherwise, the system will ask for fast or compatible load. Press F to pay your respects, and then here, for our initial start, I wanted to see the manual, which is presented nicely. It tells you how to load the game after already loading it, but then you can proceed with the main event. Whoa, that is awesome! After a bit of loading, we're here. And guys, I'm disappointed that it works so well on this! I cannot believe my eyes! The colours are superb, the graphics are more than adequate, the physics are top notch, if not spot on. I got out my PAL Sega Master System 2 to create a side-by-side comparison, and it is scarily on par. I mean, this isn't a remake or anything, this is an actual port, which is utterly impressive. I'm stunned. Even the camera here can keep up with the max speed. The Commodore has blast processing. It's all here, folks. Bridge Zone without the forced scrolling in Act 2. Jungle Zone without the forced death pit in Act 2. Labyrinth Zone without the water... Oh wait, no, that's still there. How is this early 80s contraption coping with all this? Nothing goes amiss here. All bosses arrive. Emeralds are still hidden. The flashing in sky base is even functional. All in glorious 50 frames per second. And the music created by this guy, who also took the time out to do the intro for this video, has whipped up some tunes that seriously rival the original PSG sounds. I'll demonstrate the more familiar tempo of NTSC later, but my golly, I'm struggling to find any complaints. Maybe Jungle Zone looks a bit worse for wear, especially in the waterfall sections, but I do like the sunset aspect. Oh, and I swear a part in the final boss is different for one hit only, but except for that, this is a fine port of a game. If you're curious on how the game combines both sides, once you finish Jungle Zone, the game will ask for the next disc. Just take A out and insert B, press the fire button, and seconds later, everyone's favourite level arrives. Seamless.
Okay, so far so good. But not everyone can write their own discs, and you may be forced to use an SD reader or some other device to read D64 images. Do these change anything?
Well, apart from the loading process, absolutely not. It's mostly good. It's recommended to use compatible load with such attachments, but with my SD2IEC, wow, that's a mouthful, I could pick either one and they both functioned. It was a little bit slower on loading compared to my disk drive, which was surprising, but when it came to my Turbo Chameleon version 2, it was almost the same story. Compatible mode booted the game, but it was dreadfully slow. I'm not kidding. Imagine Sonic 06's loading times, but thrice as long. It's even a sloth in between stages, but at least it displayed itself, I suppose. And fast mode was okay and on time with the SD method, but it kept crashing in random places. Weirdly, if you turn on turbo mode using the Chameleon, then you can use either fast or compatible load with no issues. I then got my PAL Commodore 64 Breadbin, and I expected it to be no different, but disaster. The flipping thing wouldn't even power on! Gah! So I had to send this to be fixed, which the modder did a very good job, and also sent me a lint bar which automatically got him 5 stars. I got it back, and we're in business. In composite business this time, because S-Video was giving me a black and white picture, but whatever, I tested it all thoroughly and can conclude it formulated the same as the C64C. But when it comes to the NTSC Commodore 64, that's when things become complicated. Especially as this wouldn't turn on either! I don't know what that was. I had to send this off to be fixed as well. But once it was back in my arms, and S-Video providing colour too, I did the usual starting sequence using my discs, but got presented with this message. As it's not compulsory, I ignored it. And honestly, what's all the fuss about? It's playing, it's at 60 frames per second now, and the music is at a tempo we're all familiar with. I compared this with my NTSC Master System, and it does fall out of sync, but that's because the Commodore is actually outperforming it, concerningly by quite a bit. But moving past that, I found the results screen to have a countdown glitch, and similar can be found in the special stages, which results in a longer playtime. The only other issue is that there's a bit of screen tearing here and there, but that's all. Whoa! Bridgestone is collapsing! Out of nowhere, stuttering has ramped up, and it's becoming an eyesore. It improves a bit in Jungle Zone, but it's still very evident in a lot of patches. And this goes for all future levels. And in Labyrinth, additional water glitches arose when a certain distance away. I'd rather drown than witness this! Only Green Hill remained the cleanest. Is this why the accelerator was recommended? Well, yes. But with a lot of them, you can't use it and the RAM at the same time, which the latter is absolutely required. This applies to my Turbo Chameleon version 2, but luckily it has RAM emulation built in. Make sure it's enabled, turn on the accelerator to 2 MHz, and now the game is worse! Gordon Bennett, that's unbearable! Luckily, if you get to this issue, try enabling D030. It's believed that this lets the device handshake with the game/computer correctly, and now it's silky smooth. This is what we're here for. No stuttering, no judders. It's everything you can ask for. Even the countdown issue has been resolved. I retested the side-by-side exam, and it still appears to be faster than what it's meant to be representing, so it's not quite right. But hey, it's working at the end of the day.
Which is great news, right? Well, I'm sorry, but this isn't considered real hardware. Correct me if I'm wrong, but no accelerator for the C64 is. You're literally replacing the CPU from the Commodore with whatever this tool is using.
If these were official devices or at least licensed by Commodore, then I would understand a lot more. But if you have to get outsourced extensions to make this run smoothly, then we have a problem. I'm aware that the Super CPU has an extra slot for the official RAM, but the accelerator itself is still third party, with its own CPU, so I'm still saying that's deceitful. But that's where the Commodore 128 comes in, because these beasts have an accelerator built in when running C64 programs.
So this will solve all our problems.
Anyway, PAL first. Remembering to boot the system into 64 mode, you would follow the same techniques as you would for the predecessors. If you're thinking this would produce the same outcome as the PAL machines earlier, then you would be 100% correct. Yep, the game crashed and restarted itself. So I had to start again and make it all the way back to Scrap Brain Zone.
Editor RHS here. A little bird told me that this button next to restore can enable level select on the title screen. Well, that would have been handy to know earlier. Anyway, I replayed the game.
I got up to Bridge Zone's boss when suddenly the computer cuts its power. Hoping the third time's a charm, but I only got up to the end of Bridge Zone 2 this time. It turns out that the unofficial PSU I purchased, yes, I forgot to add that to the inventory earlier in the episode, was having issues keeping everything in check. Powering the Commodore on a disk drive is one thing, but the REU takes a whopping 10 watts of power! The C64 isn't as hungry as the C128, so that was never an issue. But here, I was forced to use 2 power supplies. And bingo! I made it to Scrap Brain 2. But would it crash again? Nope, all good. It was most likely a fault with the power at this point too.
But for our grand finale, we have the NTSC C128. And as this built-in accelerator is genuine, I might be more positive this time around. Are you f***ing kidding me?
So apparently, you can't utilise the built-in accelerator while using the official RAM expansion. I tried forcing it anyway, but it was simply not loading. So let's go without overclocking for now. And yep, the display jumping was in attendance. Funnily enough, all timer bugs were gone, but this simply won't save grace.
So you would think I would have to get the Turbo Chameleon out. But get this!
You cannot use these on any C128s, as damage to both appliances can occur.
So basically, I'm stuck! You were meant to be the chosen one! Do you really think I'm going to throw this?
It's ironically a downgrade over the NTSC Commodore 64, because at least I could speed that up with third-party gadgets. Here, I can't! My friend GerbilSoft has the 1541 Ultimate 2, and when used on the C128D with the inbuilt accelerator, the game never got far, and without the accelerator, as you can imagine, tearing. I was hopeful for the 60Hz version on the C128, but it turned out to be the worst out of the bunch.
And I'm ready to give my rating. I'm sure I'm going to get some angry comments over this, but...
Does Sonic Commodore 64 work on real hardware? Remembering that 256 kilobytes of RAM expansion is required for all PAL users on either 64 or 128 Commodores, yes. For NTSC users, you have to have some modern accelerator available, but as none are real hardware, they cannot be considered in this grading. And then the included accelerator in the Commodore 128 cannot be operated in conjunction with the official 1764 RAM. This means you'll get screen jerkiness and ripping, which may be to your dismay, in which I have no choice but to give this a partial score.
Now don't get me wrong, I'm not against the idea of using a modern utility. In fact, it's definitely the best way to go to experience Sonic on the Commodore, so you get that perfect play without the disadvantages of 50Hz.
But if you're strict on only using proper Commodore products, then PAL is a better option. At standard, 50Hz is the only one that matches its Master System counterpart practically perfectly, whereas 60Hz gets a little ahead of itself and brings its own problems.
Albeit if you don't mind going third party for a boost, then NTSC can pave the way forward. At least for the Commodore 64, the 128, maybe not so much.
All in all, it's still a marvellous wonder that this has come to be in the first place, and I have nothing but respect for the team behind this. And if Sonic 2 was to ever surface, well, I'll be ready.